Hello everyone, and welcome to Project Insight's product training webinar. The topic for today is project requests. Furthermore, how to create a project process, because we all know who's screaming the loudest isn't a process. Just a few things to note before we get started. All participants will be put on mute. However, any questions you have are more than welcome. Please type them into the questions box, which you can find on your GoToWebinar panel. Also, do know this webinar recording will be available within the Project Insight community. My name is Chanel, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm currently the sales assistant here at Project Insight. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to reach me at chanel.harrell@projectinsight.com. Cynthia is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Project Insight. In over 14 years at the company, has had thousands of client interactions from the evaluation process through implementation and success. She's going to share some of her insights on best practices for getting your team on board with a new software solution. So before going ahead and handing this over to Cynthia, I'd like to open up to our audience and ask you guys a question. Is that showing? Yep. So you just want to get an idea, how is your organization currently managing your project requests? Is it via email, Excel, sticky notes? Do you just not manage them at all and take everything? Or is there another process that you guys take? And if so, please feel free to type that in the questions box. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close our poll out. Just a few seconds. We've got some others in that questions box, which we'll be happy to share. All right. And we're going to go ahead and all right, so we're going to go ahead and share these results. So it looks like we have a majority of our audience managing their projects in either SharePoint or another project tracking system. We've also got a high 25% using email, 21% using Excel or a Word document. Thankfully, nobody using sticky notes, and 14% just taking every project thrown their way, so not really having a process at all. So we'll be happy to have Cynthia kind of dig a little bit deeper and see how we can best manage these. Welcome, Cynthia, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Cynthia to go ahead and get us started.
Great. Okay, thanks, Chanel. Some of the other responses, just for everybody to know, that came in were SharePoint, SharePoint as an intake process, and then also SharePoint. Somebody put in project tracking software with no name, and another put in IBM Notes workflow. So obviously there are, plenty of solutions to help manage that. A lot of the customers that come to us are using email, which of course you get bombarded with email. And one of the challenges with email is that it's too freeform. People send in whatever is at the top of their mind, and it allows anyone in your organization to send in a request. You'll get too many requests, and they'll all be different and not standardized. So this doesn't really allow you to capture fields that are required for you to make an intelligent decision. Of course, applications like Word and Excel are excellent for what they do, but they're also single-user applications, and that information is not centralized. Some folks put it on the network, or maybe they're putting those documents on SharePoint, and that at least centralizes those documents, but it does make it hard to compare one request to another. Obviously, sticky notes and whiteboards, thankfully we didn't have anybody there, but that's a very archaic process, and you're trying to perform analysis on intake and demand manually is just very, very challenging, as you all know. So obviously what you want to do is create some best practices around managing your project requests. And this can fold around a solution like Project Insight or not, but you can at least decide what kind of information you need to gather as an organization to make an intelligent decision. You can do that by also figuring out what your organization's goals are, decide how to compare one request to another fairly using goals, critical success factors, and KPIs. You also need to figure out if the scope is even possible from a resource, budget, and scope perspective. So how much realistically can the organization take on? If you have an organized project management office, great. But some of our customers and people that we talk with don't have a PMO. But you definitely want to keep everyone that needs to make this assessment in the know, allowing for them to comment and collaborate on the intake and the project requests so that everybody understands what's going on. You'll want to keep your requests organized. And in our system, obviously, you can view all of your project requests in one neat dashboard. You'll want to have some kind of formal approval process and avoid pet projects that maybe come from even the leadership team, making sure that everything that you work on is approved. So what I'm going to do today is show you just how easy it is to manage those project requests, that intake in Project Insight. So we're going to take a look at how things are centralized, how the team can collaborate on those requests, review them, route them for approval, score them against agreed upon goals, and turn that project request into a project. So hang on one second. I'm going to go ahead and flip to my solution. Okay. And what you're looking at here, let me bump this up just a little bit. Okay. In Project Insight, you do have the flexibility to add one or multiple folders on this left navigation here. These are just my examples, but oftentimes we'll have you put in, if you're trying to manage demand or intake, put in a folder that's going to capture all of your project requests. So you can see right now I'm in that folder for project requests, and I have a handful of requests here. So what some teams will even do as well is have a form on a corporate intranet or portal and allow all of their team members across the entire organization to fill out the form and then have that mapped to the form inside of Project Insight. That way you don't have to license every person in the organization, but they all have the ability to request projects. And then those forms can pass directly over to Project Insight using our APIs. So let's just take a look at an example here. I take a look at my social media request form. The general tab here, this is where the default fields are in Project Insight. However, if you do have a custom intake form that you want to enable, you can put custom fields in the Custom Fields tab, or you can also place them on the General tab as well. So if you did have that corporate portal, that these could be your fields, or really any fields that you choose. These are just examples. And have that data mapped over into Project Insight. Then the team that reviews the requests can receive an email alert or an alert on their social notification stream, hey, you've got a new request that has come in. So this is just showing off a lot of these fields are text fields or text area fields, but you can also select, create fields that select users in your system, date pickers, all kinds of different options. Okay, so this is the default field, and you obviously have the name of the project that's being requested. And if you do know what kind of project template that's going to come from, you can select it from your list of project templates. And one of the benefits of that is that when the project request is approved, you can kick off that project with simply one click. Okay, so for this one, we think that Jill's going to be the project manager, Susie's going to be the sponsor, and we can go ahead and click Save and Display. Now, I want to get a little bit more room on my screen, so I'm going to go ahead and collapse that left side. That gives me a little bit more room there. And you can see that we have the ability to add comments here in the Comments tab. So perhaps let me just add one really quickly. And each person on the team can post whatever their thoughts are here. And you can see that John, that's the person that posted, that's who I'm logged in as. He has his comment here and the date and time stamp of when he added that comment. Okay. Now, if you are wanting to prioritize these requests a little bit more, you can use the scorecard. And the scorecard tab, this is just an example of a very simple scorecard which has some goals outlined. It can be built out to 3 tiers: goals, critical success factors, and KPIs. And this is just the goal level. A lot of people will keep it very simple. So we want to know if this new project request aligns to our firm's priority. And you can give that a 0 to 10 score for that particular goal. How well does that new project request meet the goal? And if you want to get very sophisticated, you can add some weighting factors as well. So if you're having compliance projects, that sort of thing, the weighting factor would be quite high if you had some kind of federal compliance type of thing. So you can see that we scored this project, and we would go ahead and save that. And then when we're taking a look at all of our project requests, we could then prioritize them. So let's take a look at that. If I go to one of my saved reports here.
Cynthia, before we move on, looks like we do have a couple questions.
Okay.
Those.
Sure.
We do have a question. Is the scorecard required with project request?
Oh, good question. No, you do not have to use the scorecard at all. It's an option. It does give you the ability to rank the projects, and I'll show you a simpler way in just a second too. There's another way to prioritize those projects. So hang on to that thought. Is there another question?
We did have another question. When will we be able to reply to the comments from the email notifications? I think they may be talking about that comment section from the previous section we were in.
When will you be able to reply to the comments via email?
Yes.
I don't know. That may be a customer asking for a delivery date. I don't have that date just yet. But if you want to write that down, Chanel, we can follow up with development on that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there more?
Nope, that's all we have for now.
Okay. So what I did here, I'm still using the scorecard here, and what I've done is created a bar chart for the prioritization. So we can see that the ad campaign request has the highest score, then the web refresh, and then the brochure, and this one hasn't been scored yet. So we can very clearly see in a visual way what the priorities are, and we might want to go in and approve that one. And then, of course, like in all reports, if you do want a little bit more detail, you can include the table results as well. Let's go ahead and add that. And that'll just give you a little bit more data, and just remember that you can, of course, add columns to your reports. So that's one way to figure out which reports, or excuse me, which requests you should move forward with first. Okay. Now, another thing that you can do, if you don't want to use the scorecard, because this may be a little bit more involved, and I know that a lot of project teams that don't have that level of maturity, they'll simply add a custom field here for like a priority number or a pull-down field with designations that they can use later. So it could be as simple as this is a priority project, or it could be numbered, 1 through N, whatever number you want to give it. That's fine too. Okay. All right. So let's say we want to go ahead and route this one for approval. I'm going to go ahead and go to Add Approval Request, and it'll drop in the name of that particular project request. And you can, at that point, pick who your approvers are going to be. Just pick a few people here, and they can be, the request can be sent sequentially. That's why maybe Jill gets it first, Michelle, then Nick. Or if you don't check that checkbox, you can send it to all 3 at the same time. And if you'd like, you can optionally say, hey, this doesn't move forward unless everyone is in agreement and is willing to approve. So once you send that, it's going to send Jill, Michelle, and Nick an email to their regular inbox, whether that's Gmail, Outlook, whatever. And then when Jill takes a look at that by clicking the link, it's going to show you, hey, she viewed it, and she can approve or deny that request. Also, all of these elements and alerts, let me just show you a regular dashboard. All of those alerts can also, instead of being sent to email or in addition to being sent as emails, can be put in your social notification stream here. So this is kind of like your social media look and feel. You can see here, for example, that Michelle denied an approval request here. That was a couple days ago. Susie Moore approved a different request. Again, that was a couple days ago. And then you can see things like your scheduled report is ready to be viewed, or this is the Project Insight icon, which tells you that something was supposed to be completed and wasn't, so it's overdue. I prefer to get all of my Project Insight notifications in the social stream here as opposed to email, simply because I get a lot of emails and enough emails as it is. All right. So let's say we did get approval from those 3 for our ad campaign. This is what I was talking about. If your project request has a template associated with it, like it does here, we can go ahead and create a project from that request with 1 click. So I'm just going to click on that, and at this point it's going to say Save and Display. And it'll pull all the tasks that I have in that project template and let you modify, add, remove from here. So without having to reinvent the wheel, we're leveraging those templates, and we're kicking off that project from the request. And all of the information that we had in the project request general tab is carrying over to the actual project. So it eliminates a lot of double entry. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you today. If there are any other questions, we do have some time for that.
Yes, yeah, we do have a question. Can the approval distribution be automatically set for all requests?
Yes and no. There is a way to create an approval template which would have the same people in it all the time. And that's one reason. Let me go back and show you. Oops, hang on a sec. over here, where we have activate and send, this allows you to set up a template of an approval, and then you would simply copy and reuse that template, and then you would click, in this case it's already activated, but you would check the checkbox, which would then activate the approval and get it ready to go. Anything else?
Thank you. It doesn't look like we have anything else. Any other questions? We can give it another minute or so. Feel free to post any questions in that question box.
And just while they might be doing that, let me just touch on the other question about scorecards. Because scorecard, like I said, it requires a little bit of maturity. You'll notice that in the project add edit form here, I do have a default field called priority. So this is now at the project level as opposed to the project request. But what I can do instead of using a scorecard is simply give a project a number, and then I hit save. And if, for example, let's say I have 100 projects in here, but something comes in along the way that's my new number one, I can come in and say, oh, hey, here's my new number one. And if I have the settings set up in the administration section to auto renumber all of my projects, then my new number one will be number one, and then my old number one will become number two, and so forth, and everything will cascade after that. It's a very handy feature for teams that don't want to go as far as the scorecard yet. So that's another way to access the prioritization. In this case, it would be projects in planning state, not necessarily the requests.
Great. We did have a couple more questions come through. First question, does a project request reside within Project Insight or outside of the license requirements? So that's kind of an overarching question.
Sure. Okay. So a couple things. I didn't really show you how I can add one, but when I click Add, you'll notice that I have a default item in Project Insight called Project Request. So let's just say whatever it might be. So that's the default form here. And I really only need to put the name in, and I can hit Save and Display. So the benefit of using the default form in Project Insight, and again, the item type is called Project Request, is that you can route things for approval automatically, comment on them, and with one click create a project. However, you might remember that I was talking about earlier, I had created a bunch of custom fields for a process that I was already using maybe before I became a Project Insight customer, and I want to carry on that tradition, and those fields are useful to me for helping decide priority. So I added custom fields to this form, and we talked about we don't want to, if we belong to a 10,000 employee organization, we obviously don't want everybody licensed for Project Insight. That's not really sensible, especially if they're only maybe once a year or once every 5 years going to make a project request. So what our customers will often do is use their corporate portal. Maybe everybody has a license to SharePoint or a corporate intranet, something like that. They'll have the webmaster create a form that looks exactly like this, or in some cases they already have a form that looks like whatever their process is. And then we simply map from that portal that they use currently or plan to use, we map this custom field from the portal to this exact custom field in Project Insight. So when the employee or team member hits send from the intranet or the corporate website, whatever, that information passes seamlessly over to Project Insight. So you can obviously gather intake from directly inside of Project Insight, or you can use the APIs to get that information from another place in the cloud or another system and pass that over automatically, so you don't have to do duplicate entry. And those APIs are already built from Project Insight that include all the custom fields that you might want to map to, projects, tasks, users, all of that good stuff. Good
Yeah, hit on
questions,
another.
everybody. I'm glad I got some questions.
I think we have time for this last question here. Does a project requester determine the scores to be entered in the scorecard, or can the scores be entered by the PMO members?
I mean, most of our customers have the PMO score the project. I would say most of our customers, if they do have people adding them directly inside a Project Insight, they'll simply train them on how to fill the general tab out. This is usually the purview of the PMO, just because they are in the know about what all of these goals mean and so forth and how to score them. Yeah, so typically the end users or the employees don't want to fill out as much information as they want to do the minimal amount of work is in our experience. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Great. All right, doesn't look like we have any other additional questions, and then you've hit on all the other questions that were asked. So
let me just, actually, I was thinking about one other thing, the person that asked about commenting via email. We did add social mentions in Project Insight, so let me see if I can just add one quickly on the fly. So one thing I did want to say is, let's say somebody is a user in Project Insight. If I put @ it says, oh, are you wanting to comment to Susie Moore? And I can make a comment. And what that'll do, that mention there is going to show up on Susie's social notification stream. So that's kind of cool. Comes over here. I mean, I'm not logged in as Susie, but it would show up here on her stream, and she can click on it, and it'll take her directly back to that comment where she can add another comment. So it's not via email, but it is on the stream where you can then reply with one click. Okay, shall I give you the presenter back?
Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any more. Oh, do you have time for one more question, Cynthia?
Sure.
Okay. This last final question. Are there any plans to create project requester user types? So for employees that will only submit project requests, so possibly won't need a license.
That's a good idea. I'll put a request in for that. There's some thought of kind of more of a light user approach. So yeah, there's some talk about that, but we aren't sure exactly what additional functionality that person might be able to do.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, everyone, for your questions. I just have a few more slides for you before we do end this session. For those on social media, I'd like to invite you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels. Our handle on Twitter is @ProjectInsight, and of course, you can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and YouTube for the latest on PI News. If you're not already a PI user and would like to learn more, please feel free to contact us via phone, email, or request your demo at projectinsight.net. In our Project Insight community, you'll find many recorded videos and webinars for you to watch and learn from. You can sign up for your next product training or check out the rest of our webinars by visiting our PI calendar to register for as many as you'd like. That's all we have for you today. We'd like to thank Cynthia for a great session and, of course, thank our audience as usual for your time and participation. We hope to have you on board for our next webinar. Thank you and have a great day.